A humane society claims that less than 67% of U.S. households own a pet. In a random sample of 600 U.S. households, 390 say they own a pet. At alpha equals 0.10, is there enough evidence to support the society's claim? Part A. Identify the claim and state the null and alternative hypothesis. The claim is that less than 67% of U.S. households own a pet. In mathematical terms, we would write this as P as less than 0.67. Since this one does not include the equal sign or the equal portion, this one's going to be the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis is the complement, or P is greater than or equal to 0.67. Part B. Use technology to find the p-value. For this problem, I'm again going to use Google Sheets. Here I have my Google Sheets spreadsheet, and I went ahead and filled out just some different variables that we're going to use in this calculation. P, Q, X, N, P hat, a standardized test statistic, and my p-value. So from the problem, let's fill in the numbers from our problem. Here I have my values filled out that was given to me, and now let's fill in the Q and the P hat so that we can use those in our calculations. Q is equal to 1 minus P. P hat is equal to X divided by N. Now let's go on to calculate our standardized test statistic. We're going to use the formula of P hat minus P divided by the square root of PQ divided by N. So we're going to have to enter this in very carefully. I'm going to go ahead and type in my equal sign. Now in the numerator, I'm going to enclose the numerator in parentheses. We have P hat minus P. I'm going to enclose that all in parentheses, divided by the square root of P times Q divided by N in the parentheses. So there I have my standardized test statistic. And now let's calculate the p-value. To calculate the p-value, we're going to use the norm.s distribution right here. Norm.s.distribution. This one's going to return the standard normal cumulative distribution function. And that's because we've already got our standardized test statistic. So I'm just going to click on this. And I can see there's my p-value right there. So my p-value is 0.148 or approximately 0.15. Part D. Decide whether to reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis, and then D. Interpret the decision in context of the original claim. Let's look again at our rules or decision rules for using the p-value. Here we have our decision rule based on the p-value, and let's also list what our p-value is. Okay, so we want to find out how this p-value compares to our alpha. We can say that our p-value is greater than our alpha. So if it's greater than alpha, then we fail to reject the null hypothesis. So how do we interpret this in context of the original claim or the original question? The question is there enough evidence to support the society's claim? Remember that which one was the claim? The claim was the alternative hypothesis. So if we're failing to reject the null hypothesis, we're saying pretty much that the null hypothesis is true. So we would not be able to support the society's claim. So in writing, that would be, there is not enough evidence at the 10% level of significance to support the Humane Society's claim that less than 67% of U.S. households own a pet.